And this is night 3 of the Democratic convention, and the Democrats once again featured some of the party's most prominent leaders alongside celebrity star power.
Tonight, the brightest spotlight was on Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Harris's pick for vice president. And KCAL News political reporter Tom Wade is here live with the highlights tonight, Tom.
I gotta say, the Democrats know how to roll out some big names, right? Not just in their party, but I mean, they had Oprah. So there
they
you
did.
go.
Yep.
And she, made clear she's an independent, but she was there at the convention. So there you have it. All right. Democrats tonight featured a mix of megastars and their current and former leaders, and introduced Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who gave an emotional speech and said their campaign was about joy versus darkness.
Please welcome the Democratic nominee for Vice President, Governor Tim Walz.
It's the honor of my life to accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States.
Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, father, a former teacher and football coach, veteran, introducing himself to the country. Walz talked about reproductive freedom and how IVF changed the course of his family's life.
And when our daughter was born, we named her Hope. Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you. I'm letting you in on how we started a family, because this is a big part about what this election is about. Freedom.
It was a night of prominent Democratic leaders and megastars.
Soon and very soon, we're going to be teaching our daughters and sons about how this child of an Indian mother and a Jamaican father, two idealistic, energetic immigrants, how this child grew up to become the 47th president of the United States.
Democrats put more of their stars in the rotation. A raucous welcome for former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who paid tribute to President Biden. Pelosi was reported to have pressured Biden to step aside, which allowed Vice President Harris to take the Democratic nomination. Pelosi blasting former President Trump for his actions on January 6th.
January 6th was a perilous moment for our democracy. Never before had a president of the United States so brazenly assaulted the bedrock of our democracy, so gleefully embraced political violence, so willfully betrayed his oath of office.
Former President Bill Clinton.
Kamala Harris is the only candidate in this race who has the vision, the experience, the temperament, the will, and yes, the sheer joy to get something done.
Night 3 of the convention also featured Republicans who soured on former President Trump, including former Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, a staunch conservative.
My journey started to this podium years ago when I realized Donald Trump was willing to lie, cheat, and steal to try to overturn the 2020 election. I realized Trump was a direct threat to democracy, and his actions disqualified him from ever stepping foot into the Oval Office again.
Democrats also played back footage of the January 6th pro-Trump mob that attacked the Capitol, with audio of Trump promising to pardon those who had been convicted in connection with the violence. 5 Capitol police officers died in the wake of the riot. Now retired Capitol Police Sergeant Aquilino Ganell talked about what he experienced on that horrific day.
We were beaten and blinded. I was assaulted with a pole attached to the American flag. President Trump summoned our attackers and sided with them. He betrayed us.
There were a number of stars that spoke or performed tonight, including Stevie Wonder, poet and activist Amanda Gorman, actress and producer Mindy Kaling, just to name a few. Vice President Harris wraps up the final night of the convention tomorrow night. Gio.
Tom, thank you so much. And for more analysis, let's bring in longtime veteran city and county leader Zev Yaroslavsky.
And Zev, of course, is the director of the Los Angeles Initiative at the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs, and certainly no stranger to us here at KCAL 9. Zev, okay, this was the night that Tim Walz was to be introduced to people who don't already know him. So question to you. His speech was shorter than most who took the podium tonight.
Mercifully.
Did he? Okay. Did he? I know that was deja vu for you when Bill Clinton got up there. Did he deliver? And what do you think the impression was that he made in the room and, of course, at home for the viewers?
Well, I think he's cut out of central casting. His speech was incredible. I had a coach like that in high school at Fairfax High School, go Lions, and I had a social studies teacher, but it wasn't the same guy. Here's a coach and a social studies teacher who had a tremendous impact on his students. Comes from a small town in Nebraska, moves to southern part of Minnesota. I mean, what more could you ask for a guy who represents what this campaign is trying to represent itself as accessible to everyone, accessible to middle America, not just coastal America. And he can talk that language, and he sure did it tonight. I mean, I felt like I was in a locker room getting a pep talk from my coach. I think he's, I was saying to you earlier that if you had asked me 6 weeks ago who's the governor of Minnesota, I wouldn't have been able to tell you who it was. I'd have to look it up. This guy's the real deal, and I feel it. And I think one of the great moments of the entire convention was his son.
Oh, Gus.
Yes.
Now we know
Gus.
Gus.
That's my dad. I mean, what's not to like? So I think it's a brilliant choice. I think he's going to be a very, very effective campaigner, and I'm looking forward to the debate between him and J.D. Vance.
Well, speaking of that energy, you mentioned so much about introducing the governor and how much he brings to the table for Vice President Harris. We know how much of an energy boost these conventions are for their respective parties. So the big question is, as Democrats wrap up their convention here in the next day, is does it give this particular ticket more momentum, more of an edge moving forward as we get into this final stretch of the election, or is it something else that we're going to be focusing on that really makes a difference?
Yeah, look, a convention is like a trade show. I've been to many conventions. It's really an opportunity to meet other people, to talk to other people, to your colleagues in similar professions. When I was a local official, I talked to local officials from other parts of the country. It's a trade show, and it's a synergy that takes place. I think this convention is about as electric as any I have ever seen in my lifetime. The ones that I've been to and the ones that I've watched on television, even when I was a kid. What will the impact be? Well, you're going to have several thousand delegates who are going to be marching out. I mean, they've made the point. You got to go out there and do something, as Michelle Obama said. And I think the energy that's coming out of this convention is huge. Now, is there going to be a bump politically for this convention? We'll see. I mean, there was a bump after President Biden stepped out of the race and Kamala Harris came into the race. And she got a bump of somewhere between 3 and 5 or 6 points, depending on where you're looking and which poll you're looking at. Is there going to be another bump? I'm not sure, and I'm not sure it matters at this point. The polls are just a snapshot in time. I think what you're looking at, there are a number of things that are going to happen. There's going to be a debate between Kamala Harris and Trump. There's
in a couple of weeks.
In September 10th. And there's going to be a debate between Walz and Vance for the vice presidency. And maybe there'll be more debates. I don't know. But I think that debate between the presidential candidates is going to be very important to what the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks of the election are going to look like.
Well, Zev, before we run out of time here, we talk about how well the convention has gone, how much energy we've seen, how much relatability, not a lot of policy. Right. And that has been criticism, well, certainly from the other side, but some people also that are watching and saying, well, I still haven't heard exactly how the Democrats plan to get some of these things done. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
I'll tell you what my thoughts are. If they spent all the entire convention talking about policy, people would turn off their TV and go to something else, watch a car chase. The fact is, what is this convention all about? It's not about Bill Clinton or Michelle Obama or Barack Obama and the speeches and this and that. It's about the total package. Just like the ticket is the total package. What is the Democratic Party trying to, or the Republican Party in their convention for that matter, what are they trying to convey to the American people? They're trying to convey, we're for the people, the other guy is an elitist. We pulled ourselves up by our own bootstraps. This guy inherited a fortune. We are for you. We are for the people. We'll work for you. He won't. We're new and we're looking ahead, and he's looking backwards. I just want to say one thing. Bill Clinton once said something that has always stuck with me. Campaigns are about the future, not about the past. Even when he ran for re-election, he didn't defend his record from the first 4 years. He was talking about a bridge to the 21st century, about the future. And that's what this election at bottom is going to come down to. It's about the future, not the past. And if the Democrats are right, they will win. If they're not right, then we're going to see Trump again. It's that simple.
Well, another thing, too, really quickly. I mean, we did see them come together, and that's part of what they wanted the public to see as well, because they didn't go into this. Remember, there was a lot of consternation about Joe Biden dropping out and Kamala Harris being picked and not being voted for. So they seem to really have coalesced together and presented a united front.
It's unprecedented in American history, at least modern American history. We'll probably never see it again. But Kamala Harris is very fortunate in one respect, that she didn't have to go through a primary. She didn't get beat up. You don't have opponents in the primary and clips that you can put on and say, you know, the attacks that they made on her. She's coming in basically with a clean slate, and she's much more sophisticated and experienced now than she was 8 years ago when she ran for the Senate for the first time. I think this is a very tough ticket to beat, but the country is polarized, and it's not going to be so much about changing people's minds. It's going to be about getting your vote out. That's going to be the difference. Are the Trump votes going to come out, or is she going to be able to mobilize her base to come out in bigger numbers? Because elections are going to be decided by a handful of votes in several of the key states.
Certainly in the home stretch now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Zev, always a pleasure to have you here, and we'll be talking to you again in a couple of weeks when the debate happens. So
good to be with you,
Appreciate
Pat.
your time.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay. All right, let's talk about former President Trump here. He campaigned in North Carolina today, holding his first outdoor rally since the assassination attempt. Now, Trump has been campaigning across the country this week with rallies in key states. Trump's own former White House press secretary, Stephanie Grisham, criticized him last night at the DNC. Former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama took him on directly.
Childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
Did you see Barack Hussein Obama last night? Take little shots. He was taking shots at your president.
Well, North Carolina is a swing state that Trump won in 2016 and 2020. A New York Times Siena College poll now shows him trailing Kamala Harris by 2 points. Trump travels to Arizona tomorrow. Well, could the fact that Vice President Kamala Harris is from California hurt her chances at being elected president? We will explore whether there's a divide between the U.S. and California and what it means for the presidential election. That's going to be around 9:30.
I have absolutely no faith in your hospital and the care for people.